The U.S. has cut all assistance to South Africa since February because of a land reform that was enacted, and also because of Africa's role in bringing a legal case against Israel for its actions in Gaza before the International Court of Justice. Do you expect that there will be a compromise between both presidents, or at least an understanding of what's at stake?
Yes, indeed. We are going to the White House as a sovereign state to engage with the U.S. administration on a mutual beneficial bilateral relations between the U.S. and South Africa. And we must clarify this distortion that there has been aid cut to us. It has been all over the world. The health program, PEPFAR,
yes, but there's an executive order targeting South Africa.
It's an African program. The South African government has been able to sustain on its own our HIV/AIDS budget. Indeed, there has been some support from PEPFAR and from the Global Fund, which we have always welcomed. But the majority of it has been sustained by the South African government. The trade relation between the South African government and the United States government has been mutually beneficial and at various levels, which includes AGOA and the trade agreement.
It's at risk right now.
Yes, and AGOA has been nullified because of the tariffs, which are higher than AGOA. So that has been nullified, and that necessitates this discussion to reset the bilateral trade agreement, because there is a two-way benefit to the trade relations.
Donald Trump is a transactional leader, you know that. He's probably going to want South Africa to make a few gestures to, if not annul, at least amend his executive order. Are you ready to make concession on the implementation of the land reform, or maybe drop your case against Israel before the International Court of Justice as a way to entice Donald Trump to make a deal?
The land reform is a national imperative. It's a constitutional imperative. We have to do it. It does not violate any genocide convention, and it has been confirmed by the Human Rights Council in Geneva as a national imperative to redress the past land imbalances of our country. And as I've said earlier on, because of apartheid, almost more than 70% of the land in South Africa is still owned by white Afrikaners. And the program is not arbitrary, it's not confiscation, but it's a process that is just within the Constitution, and the process, adjudicatory.
So you won't abandon it?
No, we won't.
What about the ICJ
case? It's a necessary imperative to ensure to build our nation. The ICJ case is also won't be abandoned, because it's in the interest of the world that we all uphold the rule of law. Because of our history as a country under apartheid, we have got a moral obligation to protect and defend the international rule of law and the UN Charter and the Convention.
You'll be sitting in the White House alongside the president. You've seen what happened to the Ukrainian president. He was berated, some said humiliated. Imagine if Donald Trump says to the president, there is a genocide against white farmers happening in South Africa. Should the president respond? Should he? How do you do this? You know how Donald Trump behaves. Sometimes he speaks like this. Do you think there has to be a firm response, or that you have to accommodate him in a way to make sure that you get something out of this very important visit?
Obviously, we can't compromise on principle, and it will be unfortunate to have a debate on a non-existing issue. This issue does not exist. The whole world knows it doesn't exist. Nothing backs it, no evidence from anywhere. So it will be really unfortunate to be involved in a debate that really should not be there because it doesn't exist. But we will have to ensure that there is clarification to President Trump, to the people of the world. This really, it doesn't exist. There should not be a debate, in our view, about a non-existing genocide.
It's always good to be fine. And today we have a special guest, a man with whom knows a lot about the topic we are going to say. Well knowledgeable, a friend. He is many things to me. Yeah, introduce yourself.
Hello and what's up, Africa and all black people. This is Simon, and many people know me on these spaces as AfriSite. So my channel is AfriSite. My channel is dedicated to doing matters, black people, black concerns, and just anything to do with black people.
They are calling themselves refugees, and Afrikaners have a long history with Africa in itself, with the southern part of Africa, to be specific. You know, they have captured South Africa, and also they have captured countries like Namibia. They have their own towns, they have their own cities, they have their own hospitals, their own schools, their own churches, their own roads. Like, they value themselves that much, right?
Sure.
So you can see the shadows of apartheid from how they operate.
Yes.
Apartheid was a segregation based on skin color.
Just to start, basically, Afrikaners are the white minority of South Africa or Southern Africa.
Sure.
Who trace their roots back to, you know, white settlers of some centuries ago when they were exploring, and they found a good place of which they settled, and they were accommodated, we can say accommodated, because they also forced their way. And ever since, after the apartheid era, they have lived in South Africa, unlike in many different countries in Africa where the colonialist or the white imperialist left. But we could actually say the black people of South Africa accommodated them right after they had gained their independence in 1990s. Yeah.
So the Afrikaners are people from Dutch. They are the Dutch. Dutch is a language. It's not a region. So they are Netherlanders, people from Netherlands.
Yes.
If you like it, sometimes you can call it Holland. And now the government of South Africa has been fighting hard for land appropriation, for there to be a nationalization of lands in South Africa, because the black majority is really suffering land issues. They don't have land even to plow. They don't even have land to build on. And so the government of South Africa sought to take back land from the hands of the white Afrikaners back to the black people. That is how I understand it.
Yes.
And these people, it's rather for them to have the land or become refugees. You either give them the land in South Africa or they become refugees in America. That is how much they dislike sharing with the Africans, because they are escaping sharing.
So basically, this is what has been happening.
Yeah.
Now, let's go back a little bit to some, years ago. Now, when they came to Africa, they actually grabbed land.
Yeah.
And they took a lot of land for that matter. Yeah. So during the apartheid era, just like during the colonial of all other African countries, the natives or the Africans were being, put into concentration camps. And concentration camps, as the name says, they were supposed to concentrate them in a small place.
Not like concentrate as your mind.
No, like to gather them in one particular small place. And then the vast lands of Africa were left bare.
Yes.
And so they got an opportunity to grab as much as they would wish.
Yes.
And that is how they ended up owning so much land in South Africa.
Yes, yes.
This is how land ownership in South Africa is currently. So, first of all, the white minority, because they are a minority in South Africa, because they don't even make up to 10% of that population, of South African population, but they control at least 70% of available land in South Africa. Yeah, so at the 10% have 70% of privately owned land, because they were actually not buying the land.
Yes.
They were grabbing as much as you could have. And now, so the South African government later came, to challenge that injustice.
Yeah.
And what was suggested was that there was going to be a land appropriation bill or law, because it was noted that some white settlers have too much land than they need. You'd find a family has tens of thousands of acres of land.
A single family.
And they have really nothing to do with all of that land. They would probably cultivate a couple hundreds, and the rest of the land will lie bare because it's more than enough. And so this is where the whole problem started. I often say in many of my videos, when an overly privileged people are treated to equality, then they feel like they are being oppressed. Now, black South Africans, the 90% of black South Africans don't have land. They still live in concentration camps to date. You'd find 1,000 South Africans living in a small space of 1,000 acres. While there's a family of less than 10 people who have 10,000 acres of land. And so Mr. Donald Trump, and together with his entourage, his circle of friends, of course you know who I'm talking about, the likes of Elon Musk, were not happy with the fact that South Africa wants to deal with the land injustice. And
why do you think, are they not meddling in the affairs of another country?
The United States of America doesn't care, because that is their business, to meddle in other people's affairs. They have always been doing that historically. That is how they find themselves into being called the superpower. It wasn't based on any merit. So now you remember on a case of doublespeak for Mr. Donald Trump, when he took office, because the wrangles between South Africa and America started right after he took power. And he had cancelled any relocation of refugees to America from anywhere in the world, regardless. And that's against the law of the United States of America, which gives for at least 120,000 refugees who can evidently claim they're being persecuted or they deserve. So against the law, he said there was no space for refugees in his country. But on a twist of events or thought, now suddenly he wants to relocate these white Afrikaners, not just give them asylum and refugee status, but fast track the process, expedite the process, and give them citizenship. And people have not been happy about the whole thing, because you know, people observe and people are wise out here. How comes this small minority of white privileged people are now being extended to extended US citizenship, while people that deserve that? Now Donald Trump actually has claimed himself that there is a white genocide in South Africa.
He did say that.
He said that, where there is no genocide in South Africa of white or black or brown. There is no genocide there is a high crime rate in South Africa, but it's not racially based. In fact, the people that are suffering the most are black people, because they are the minority. So a random case of high crime rate would probably find
the blacks,
the majority, sorry. So there is no genocide in the first place in South Africa. We have genocides in
many countries
happening in Africa.
So before we move further, there's a video I want us to watch to gather more context in what is happening, because we have the foreign minister of South Africa coming up front and speaking about this whole situation. He's giving his perspective as the foreign minister. Those are people at the high table in South Africa. One thing he's saying that he's seeing an exodus of white farmers. If he's seeing an exodus of white farmers, that only explains one thing: we are going to have starvation in the southern part of Africa.
Very likely.
Because I'm told that 70% of this land, which is being controlled by the 10%, they claim that this 70% of land, they use it for agriculture.
Yes.
And it is this food that is feeding South Africa.
Sure.
And sometimes even here in the streets of Kenya, we see apples and they're labeled exported from South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
We see oranges. So we even eat South African food here in Africa, here in Kenya, which has been planted by the Afrikaners.
Sure.
What do you think about it? Okay, let's watch it and then we'll have a discussion. Yeah.
Let's go for it.
Welcome to Tête à Tête, France 24's flagship interview show. Our guest today is South Africa's Foreign Minister, Ronald Lamola. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Obviously, South Africa has been in the news since a group of dozens white Afrikaners have arrived in the United States. They were welcomed as refugees, despite the U.S. closing all avenues for refugees across the world. This because, in the words of President Donald Trump, they are being subject to a genocide, and the senior U.S. official who welcomed them say he felt like his family felt when they fled Nazi-era Germany. How do you react to those words and those actions?
Yeah, we have maintained that there is no truth, nor any data or evidence that backs that white African or South Africans are suffering from any genocide. And that is also not backed by any police stats. In South Africa, we release stats every quarter in terms of crime, and the police stats does not back it. There is indeed the challenge of crime, which affect everyone and which the country is responding to. With regards to what you could define as farm murderers, there is a disproportionate number of farm dwellers who are mostly black, who are affected also, and about 55 white Afrikaners in the past 4 years, with about more than 150 farm dwellers who are black who have been affected. So then the data, the evidence, everything in South Africa does not back this issue of genocide. So it's not true.
Is it a mistake or is it a deliberate lie by the U.S. administration?
I will not know how they prefer to characterize it. What we know is that it's not factual, it is not true, it is not backed by any stats or evidence, including UN organizations have said that there is no white African or South African that deserve to be a refugee anywhere in the world because of their privileged history in our country. You will know that with the history of apartheid, the land in South Africa is still disproportionately in the hands of white Afrikaners and white farmers who are welcomed in terms of our constitution, and the laws of transformation that have been put in place are in line with the constitution, which also give processes in terms of resolving a transformatory issue. So there is no arbitrary confiscation or any form of seizure of land against white Afrikaners in South Africa. So it is not true, it is not correct.
Do you expect this to be a one-off, or do you expect that this could be the beginning of a white exodus from South Africa, prompted by what they're hearing from the U.S. administration?
There will never be an exodus of white Afrikaner farmers on the basis of a genocide. Afrikaners groups and organizations have denounced this. They've said there's no such a thing, there's no genocide. You can ask them. They have stated it. It's there, it's public. They have said this is not correct. There are challenges in South Africa, and there are avenues which we can resolve such challenges.
On May the 21st, there is supposed to be a meeting at the White House between President Donald Trump and your president, Cyril Ramaphosa. According to the president's office, this is aimed at resetting the strategic relation. In addition to those refugees, quote unquote, coming, the US has cut all assistance to South Africa since February because of a land reform that was enacted, and also because of Africa's role in bringing a legal case against Israel for its actions in Gaza before the International Court of Justice. Do you expect that there will be a compromise between both presidents, or at least an understanding of what's at stake?
Yes, indeed. We are going to the White House as a sovereign state to engage with the U.S. administration on a mutual beneficial bilateral relations between the U.S. and South Africa. And we must clarify this distortion that there has been aid cut to us. It has been all over the world. The health program, PEPFAR,
yes, but there's an executive order targeting South Africa.
It's an African program. The South African government has been able to sustain on its own our HIV/AIDS budget. Indeed, there has been some support from PEPFAR and from the Global Fund, which we have always welcomed. But the majority of it has been sustained by the South African government. The trade relation between the South African government and the United States government has been mutually beneficial and at various levels, which includes AGOA and the trade agreement.
It's at risk right now.
Yes, and AGOA has been nullified because of the tariffs, which are higher than AGOA. So that has been nullified, and that necessitates this discussion to reset the bilateral trade agreement, because there is a two-way benefit to the trade relations.
Donald Trump is a transactional leader, you know that. He's probably going to want South Africa to make a few gestures to, if not annul, at least amend his executive order. Are you ready to make concession on the implementation of the land reform, or maybe drop your case against Israel before the International Court of Justice as a way to entice Donald Trump to make a deal?
The land reform is a national imperative. It's a constitutional imperative. We have to do it. It does not violate any genocide convention, and it has been confirmed by the Human Rights Council in Geneva as a national imperative to redress the past land imbalances of our country. And as I've said earlier on, because of apartheid, almost more than 70% of the land in South Africa is still owned by white Afrikaners. And the program is not arbitrary, it's not confiscation, but it's a process that is just within the Constitution, and there are adjudicatory.
So you won't abandon it?
No, we won't.
What about the ICJ
case? It's a necessary imperative to ensure to build our nation. The ICJ case is also won't be abandoned, because it's in the interest of the world that we all uphold the rule of law. Because of our history as a country under apartheid, we have got a moral obligation to protect and defend the international rule of law and the UN Charter and the Convention.
You'll be sitting in the White House alongside the president. You've seen what happened to the Ukrainian president. He was berated, some said humiliated. Imagine if Donald Trump says to the president, there is a genocide against white farmers happening in South Africa. Should the president respond? Should he? How do you do this? You know how Donald Trump behaves. Sometimes he speaks like this. Do you think there has to be a firm response, or that you have to accommodate him in a way to make sure that you get something out of this very important visit?
Obviously, we can't compromise on principle, and it will be unfortunate to have a debate on a non-existing issue. This issue does not exist. The whole world knows it doesn't exist. Nothing backs it, no evidence from anywhere. So it will be really unfortunate to be involved in a debate that really should not be there because it doesn't exist. But we will have to ensure that there is clarification to President Trump, to the people of the world. This really, it doesn't exist. There should not be a debate, in our view, about a non-existing genocide that the UN, everybody, and all bodies established to deal with genocide said there's no such a thing. The United Nations Migration Committee have also said the white South Africans don't qualify to be classified as refugees because there is no targeted persecution in South Africa that is targeting white people. So the Constitution protects them. Our laws protect all South Africans.
You're hoping to convince President Trump that this is the case?
We hope so.
You have a G20 pin. There is also a threat about U.S. participation, his participation at the G20 summit at the end of the year. We just learned that the White House has suspended all participation to G20 preparation meetings. Are you hoping that the U.S. president will attend, or it doesn't matter in the end?
Yeah, we have not yet received a note verbal from the U.S. Confirming that. But the U.S. is a member country of the G20, in fact, a founding member. So they are welcome.
And the next chair.
Yes, and the next chair. So they are welcome to participate in the G20 in South Africa. We will embrace them. In the committees where they've participated, they have participated fully like any normal member of the G20. So the invitation to the U.S. remains open. It will be really unfortunate for a member not to participate in the G20, in their organization, to take it forward.
Your counterpart, Marco Rubio, didn't attend such a meeting of foreign ministers in South Africa, and he said so. Are you hoping to meet him in Washington and try to tell him we need to talk? We can't just portray each other as enemies or rivals and so on.
Yes, particularly because there is it's an unprovoked anonymity that is existing. From our side, there is no anonymity towards the U.S. We see them as an important partner, and our doors are always open.
We touched upon Gaza in your meetings with your French counterpart here in Paris. I assume there's been talk about this. The situation seems to be going from bad to worse. Is there any hope, do you think, that Western countries, and especially the United States, might be more proactive to try to stop what we're seeing in Gaza right now? Or do you think there's no solution?
There is a solution, and that's South Africa from the onset. We called for a ceasefire. We called for access of humanitarian access. We went to the ICJ, and we were criticized and berated by most Western countries. But we are happy that we can see that they are gradually coming around. They are now beginning to see that indeed there's a crisis that needs intervention, including from the North or the Western countries. And I've also heard President Trump today, for the first time, admitting that there is hunger in Gaza that needs the world's intervention. So hopefully, maybe that could be also the beginning, even in the U.S., for a Damascus moment that must respond to this crisis for the Western powers, the friends of Mr. Netanyahu, to tell him to stop the operation of the Israel Defense Force, because this genocide, unlike any other, is happening in full view of the people of the world. With the touch of a button from your phone, from your social platforms, it is happening, is there. The evidence is just not ignorable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Foreign Minister, for being our guest here on France 24, and thank you very much for watching this interview.
We've just heard from Ronald Lamola. Ronald Lamola is the South African foreign minister, and he was speaking with the interviewer. He's very, very famous for interviewing African leaders.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if there's an African journalist who is famous for interviewing Western leaders. You know, African leaders are very frequent to be interviewed, but the Western leaders are very conservative, I say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but all in all, we've been able to listen to the South African side of story. Yeah, so I'd rather we listen to you. What have you gathered from this interaction?
From this interview, I think I could, subtly observe that this whole story has two sides. Yeah. And just to go quickly over these two sides of this story is, Mr. Donald Trump, I heard Mr. Donald Trump say, President Donald Trump say, he is giving them the asylum because they're being persecuted. He calls it a white farmer genocide, a genocide, which there's no evidence to it at all, which he came out to try and say it's not because they're white, but we obviously know it's because they are white. Just to be a little bit, thorough and to the point, the painful truth is they are getting that privilege because they're white. Why I'd say this is because, as we had been saying initially, there are people in Africa and other parts of the world who deserve that far more than these white privileged people. See, there's a big genocide happening in Sudan. The one that has been running in DRC Congo for about 40 years. And South Sudan as well right now. That is just to mention some parts of Africa. So you'd really see that there are people who really deserve this. Women and children and people of old people.
And I'm coming to think of it's like the West have their Now, I'm coming to understand that it is like the West have their own dictionary. They have their own definition of words.
Yes.
Genocide might mean one thing to one country and mean another thing to the West, Just as you said, DRC, we have the Congo, we have
Gaza,
the two Sudans, the Southern and the Sudan itself. These are the countries experiencing the real genocide. But this one of white South African farmers, it's not a real genocide. It's like a punishment.
Yeah.
And the interviewer has placed it so. It's like a punishment that South Africans are being placed to face, because South Africa, first of all, they took Israel to court. You know who Israel is. He is a friend to USA. And so the US government, because they don't have the power to withdraw the case from the ICC, the ICJ, they had to force the accuser to withdraw the case. And who is the accuser in this case? It is South Africa. So it's a strategy that they are using in the name of white genocide to tarnish the image and the name of Africa and the South Africans.
Yeah.
But I believe that returning back land that does not belong to you is not a problem.
No.
You're not even being told that you want to get a share. The government wants to take it. And
to put into proper use.
Yes. They are including a policy called land reform. Why are they so afraid of this South African land reform? And I see that it's going to bring equality. Imagine if it was the white Africans, the white Afrikaners being the 70% and having the 10% of land, 30%, and the Africans being the minority. Imagine if Africans went to Netherlands and they did what these people are doing.
Impossible.
It would be very much impossible, right?
Yes.
And now, if we can try and look at things from that perspective, we get to understand. But this genocide thing, it's just a thing to tarnish the name of South Africa, to make them withdraw the case, And also, South African Julius Malema is a man who had wrangles. There's a time they insulted each other.
Yes.
On X. He had a verbal brawl with Elon Musk. When Elon Musk called him a hater.
Yeah.
Yeah, he responded in a certain way. So these are people who are trying to get back at the South Africans. Yes.
So, there was this. I was trying to point out on another second side of this whole issue.
Yes.
So the first side is these people are being prioritized because of the color of their skin. As much as they will try to tell us that's not the point. That is the point. We know that is the point. We can prove that is the point. Because why not give people who deserve but are not white? Why lie about an non-existent genocide? Now, let me get to the second part of this case. Now, This is a way to try and apply pressure on South Africa to destabilize the country of South Africa. And one thing I think everybody need to know, including the Afrikaners, Donald Trump is one nationalist, not just a nationalist, because we would say he's a nationalist because he loves the United States. He loves his country, and he prioritizes his country very much, from way before. But he's not just a nationalist. He's a selfish, very selfish nationalist. And this guy just cares about himself. And yes, this is Donald Trump. And what is happening here is he's only trying to apply pressure on South Africa to destabilize South Africa for the issue you have said on concerning, because South Africa have also been applying pressure on the Israel-Gaza issue.
Their friend Israel.
Yes. And another reason is, if you go and check today, there are tons of minerals that South Africa exports to the United States. Tons of minerals. Tons and tons of minerals, okay? And this is what has been happening. Now, everybody has observed there's been a shift, economical shift and alliance, whereby South Africa is actually part, not just aligning with the BRICS, but is part of the BRICS. And the United States actually views BRICS as a direct opponent to their power. BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and many other members lining up to join. Like there's a shift in power. And people are now trying to align with BRICS. And America obviously does not like that. Now this is what is happening. They export so much minerals to the United States of America. You know what happened in turn? So much dollars go back to South Africa, of course, for their minerals. So it's like they are funding the opposition, So Donald Trump is and the administration of the United States is observing that there's so much money going to South Africa, which it looks like they're now funding the opponent,
The South African government being the opponent of US.
because it's a part of BRICS. And so they're trying to create, and United States of America usually uses these excuses of human rights abuse and violation to destabilize this country of South Africa and the entire of Africa.
It's the same old trick.
Yeah, for what gain? So probably they could relinquish, or at least rethink their stance on Gaza, their stance on being vocal against them on BRICS. So they could rethink that move. So it's not exactly just about the Afrikaners and their whiteness. They're actually being used as pawns in this game of chess. They are just minor players.
The ones who are sacrificed.
The ones that are being put to the fore and shown as, the ones that are suffering are non-existent. For what benefit?
So
just to create the instability in South Africa. So maybe they could rethink about their stance.
Oh, sure.
That's the second part in this case, actually. If you really observe keenly. Yeah.
Wow, that's a detailed explanation that you have provided. Yeah, I wish we would have continued further, but time is not on our side. Yeah. So, you have any other thing to add?
We won't finish it at in this. Maybe we could do it next time, in the interest of time.
Yes. We would love to continue this discussion, and it will be now on Simon's channel, AfroSite. Check out AfroSite. He's doing very nice, interesting work. I think I'll link this
this video to
my description.
Oh, sure.
So we will have more of this discussion on his channel. Be sure to check AfroSite. He really does impressive work on matters of Africa. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me and hosting me.
You're welcome.
Hopefully we can continue this as events unfold and we learn much more.
Yes.
And we'll have much more like this to enlighten black people enlighten people of this world and enlighten ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one. Share your thoughts on the comment section.
Peace out.
Peace out.